friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and listeners, here we are again. We've got another podcast, and one of probably the places where I've got so many good memories from. And the place I'm talking about is Orlando in the USA. And the person we've got on with us now is Phil Brown, who's the CEO of Orlando International Airport and also Orlando Executive Airport. So, Phil, it's a great pleasure to have you on board.
Pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise. And we've already had a brief discussion there about the difference in the weather you've got and what we've got here. So yeah, you're most definitely in a better place today anyhow. So Phil, first question, and most people like to know, how did you get to be where you are, and what are your main responsibilities and accountabilities?
Well, I've actually been here twice. I refer to this as my second tour at the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority. I started out in professional life in county government, which is local government in the U.S. In Orange County, which is where Orlando is located, and then matriculated to the Aviation Authority in the early 90s, spent 3 years there, went into the private sector, then came back just in time for the 2008 recession. And I've been here since.
Yeah, good timing, eh? That's the trouble with this industry of ours that we love. I don't know, every 8 or 9 years it goes through a huge blip, and none more high impact than the one we're just experiencing now with this damn pandemic.
Yeah, it's I've gone from scrambling back from the recession to hitting a peak where we were surpassed 51 million passengers on an annual basis, and then about 15 days later, everything shut down. So it's been an interesting process. So the responsibilities you asked me about, the Aviation Authority is responsible for operating both Orlando International, which is the busiest airport in the state, and Orlando Executive, which is our primary reliever. So for those of your audience that are not familiar, a reliever is basically an airport that provides an opportunity for smaller aircraft, either general aviation or business aviation aircraft, to use those facilities, because the way the air traffic control system works in the United States is a Cessna 172 takes as much effort as a 747. So we try to, the extent that we can, encourage the smaller aircraft at the smaller airport. That gives us plenty of flexibility on handling the large aircraft at international. And we're back up to about 800 commercial operations on a daily basis now, up from about 250 at the low point.
Yeah, no, it's been incredible what's happened and how the business has been affected. But just on some of the stats there, you're saying that it's the biggest in Florida. If I was on a quiz show, I probably would have answered Miami, because you just automatically think of it. But then when you think of it being the busiest venue and the most served probably tourist attraction in the States as well, I mean, Orlando's is huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we, as I said, we were well past 51 million annual passengers. We actually surpassed Miami probably in 2017. We've gone back and forth. Right before the Grand Recession in 2008, we had surpassed Miami, and then their Latin American traffic held up. Our international traffic, domestic traffic, fell off, and then we clawed our way back up. And our advantage has been that we have a very vibrant local economy, and we're primarily origin and destination in the aviation parlance. That basically means we have very little connecting traffic, whereas Miami is a major hub for American Airlines. And particularly, they've always branded themselves as the gateway to the Americas because of their Latin American traffic.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you guys, you've obviously, or you did have the highest number of domestic connections into Orlando from the States, and also something like 54 international routes in. So it's
all right. So we're down right now, probably about 16 or 17 international. We still are looking forward to flights from the UK. We have a number of carriers that serve the market. We're also looking forward to a connection to Heathrow, which we haven't had before, but as British Airways and Virgin Atlantic start back up, they're going to be operating out of Heathrow.
Yeah, yeah, which is great, which is what everybody's waiting for. And this international collaboration and travel corridor and all the agreements, it's so important to get it right. I just had an experience where I was trying to go to Spain, and you've got one set of rules leaving the UK, you've got a different set, you know, when you're getting into Spain, and they didn't marry up. So it caused so much confusion for so many people. Now they've got it right, but it's you know, a couple of weeks too late for an awful lot of people. So when that kicks back in, I mean, please God, it's going to allow people to be a lot more confident. Now, the consumer confidence side of things, and personally, something I don't agree with is, you know, the way that, you know, carriers have been announcing their, should we say, their sanitization or their clean record or their clean award. You know, I think that's something that's a prerequisite, not something that you use as a competition issue. But everybody's had to refocus now on touchless and you know, the sanitization and everything. How much of an effort has that taken in Orlando?
It's been a major focus. Part of it is that people are concerned, and you know, the information regarding this virus has evolved over time.
Yeah,
because studies have been ongoing, and the health officials and the health scientists are getting more and more information. So if you recall back early on, there was a lot of concern about high contact areas and spreading of the virus by contact. And I think as the studies have come out, they've determined that that's important, but not necessarily the primary vector. So we continue to do that. We went through a pretty rigorous certification process with a group called the Global Biorisk Advisory Council,
okay,
in which they did a deep dive, drill down, look at our procedures. We were continuing to look at a number of different issues because, back to your point, safety and security are fundamentals.
Yeah,
those have to be achieved before you can do anything else. Those are the basics that we have in our strategic plan. So it's always a focus on safety and security. Without those, you can't be, you know, excel in consumer excellence or any of the other goals that MAV established. So I agree with you that it shouldn't be a competition; it should be a given.
Exactly, and a given where people are always helping each other, and that data is shared so that everybody can get better and better. Because if we have one blip in our industry, the ripples are felt everywhere, and everybody has to do more.
And because of the connectivity of our industry, it can spread quickly. So it's you know, it's very integral to being able to control the virus, that there's a lot of cooperation, not only government to government, but carriers to airports, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah. Something, Phil, that I've thought about, and it was coming before this happened, is there was I mean, it's just my opinion now, but there was a madness where everybody wanted to be bigger and grow and do everything themselves, and they were stretching themselves too far. And the sustainability of the business, and also, you know, cost plus, etc., was being dragged away from people's foresight, and as a result, they were taking too many risks, you know. And I think now that risk awareness and doing things sensibly, and also collaborating more and allowing people who've got products, you know, to link in with you rather than thinking you've got to do everything yourself. And I think that's a wise thing, and I hope that's something that's going to stay beyond, you know, when this opens up a little bit.
I think it will. I think you've seen the business model change significantly. It started to change, at least from my perspective, in 2008. I mean, the old joke in the airline industry prior to 2008 is, how do you make a small fortune in the airline industry? You start with a large one. And that was proven by at least the U.S. carriers since deregulation in 1978. Yeah, because they went through a whole series of losing billions of dollars, and ultimately they figured it out from a business standpoint. I'm not sure it's always been the best for the consumer, but through the mergers and acquisitions, at least in the U.S., you're down to basically 3 legacy carriers and Southwest Airlines that control about 80% of the traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody quotes the Southwest model and, you know, how innovative and how people conscious they were, which is something to be admired. But the US carriers are doing much better before COVID.
They were, and to their credit, several of them were focused on the customer experience, which is what, I mean, that's our wheelhouse here because of the nature of Central Florida, which really is what drives the economics of the airport and the traffic at the airport. Is we're built on hospitality. And so that has to be a main focus once you achieve safety and security.
Yeah, 100%. Now, it would be remiss of me not to mention good old Walt himself and the impact that he's had on the world and every generation. But it's almost as if in Orlando now you've got this wonderful hospitality focused ecosystem where everybody has to realize how important it is because of the volume of business that comes in. Now, has there been changes? Have you found more collaboration as part of the entire supply chain and the ecosystem itself? You know, have you all got together? Is there some sort of, you know, special charter now that people are doing to help everybody and make sure it comes back quicker? Because over here, definitely now, once things have opened up, there's a lack of chefs, there's a lack of front of house staff, there's a lack of people in general hospitality, either because they've swapped and they've had to do something else and they don't want to come back, or they don't want to risk getting back in again and being burnt twice.
Yeah, I think before the pandemic, there was a lot of cooperation among the various agencies. I mean, as an example, my board of directors has a mayor of Orlando and the mayor of Orange County, because we have a mayor in Orange County that sit on the board. And then we have a regional impact. There are several counties that are adjacent to us. One of them has by law a member. So we cooperate in that way. But back to your earlier point, we've seen the same thing over here in terms of being able to rehire labor, because a lot of companies had to furlough or lay off people.
Yep.
We're very fortunate at the Aviation Authority, but we're only a relatively small agency in terms of employees, probably about 800 employees, but we've been able to, through some austerity measures, not have to go through involuntary layoffs. We had a voluntary separation program, but a number of the large companies, Disney, Universal, a lot of the concessions companies that operate in Orlando had to do that. And so we just last week, we hosted a job fair for 55 companies. And that doesn't solve the problem, but it at least gives a focus and allows people that want to come back to work the opportunity to look at jobs. We've seen wages start to rise, which they needed to. And so that we'll see those kinds of disruptions. You know, it's there are a lot of factors. It's not a simple answer to all of the reasons. Some say it's because there are too many unemployment benefits. We in fact have focused on childcare as a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And the bit you're saying about, you know, being too sort of charitable, which then puts people off having to go to work because the differential isn't that much between taking it and working for it, which is obviously a cultural issue. But please God, you know, with care and everything else, and with people having a bit of a different focus, that will change as well. Now, as far as the contactless and as far as what's going to remain for the foreseeable future, this is definitely changing people's perception on obviously cleanliness, hygiene, social distancing, and just generally not being in people's pockets like it was before, because some of the congestion and some of the, you know, everything was just getting too much. So, I mean, a lot of that's going to stay. How has that had to be built into the way you change the processing of the passengers that come through and the people that, you know, food and beverage in the terminals, and also with car rentals, with getting them out, getting them away, etc. How many real structural things have you had to change? And obviously we'll come to the South Terminal then.
Well, we're in the process of changing that in the North Terminal, because it's you have to have the communications infrastructure, which we've been working on for some time, and then you have to have the various parties participate in it. But our view is that we need to focus a lot more on the contactless. One of the things that we're looking at is self bag drop.
Yep.
It's an acronym. We've had a couple of airlines that have tested it in other airports. We want to look at it here because we're an airport where baggage is a big part of our operation, simply because we're a leisure destination.
Yep.
Predominantly, and when people come, they bring bags. And so if we can crack the code, if you will, on a system that will allow passengers to come up, print their bag tags, scan it into the system, drop it on the bag belt, and be on their way, that does a couple of things. It gives them control, some control of their own destiny. It also prevents them from having to come in contact with people. So it addresses a couple of those issues, and it's usually more efficient for the airlines. You mentioned earlier about airlines making money. One of their largest expenses, and it vacillates between fuel and personnel, is personnel. And so to the extent that it's more efficient for operations, I think it benefits everybody.
Yeah.
Seen that for something we've already implemented, which is biometric exit for international passengers. We made a decision several years ago to fund biometric gates for all of our international carriers because it was a mandate from our Customs and Border Protection.
Yeah.
But it also ends up being much more efficient for processing of passengers, as well as we have biometric entry for entry into the United States at our Federal Inspection Services area. So I think more of those will continue. I can remember 15 years ago when I used to have to print out boarding passes to get into the line and get approved. Everybody's now carrying it on their personal devices. So I think you will see more of that. And frankly, we're trying to look at ways that we can improve that and accelerate that, which has really been accelerated, frankly, by the pandemic, because it's become almost a necessity to be able to do that.
Yeah, that is, you're right. And it's what's probably been achieved in 1 and a bit years would have taken 10 years to do under normal circumstance, with all the restrictions and barriers and people who wouldn't accept it. Can I ask you something now? With so much downtime, you've got an awful lot of equipment, like every airport. And how are you dealing, or how is the community dealing now with the excess equipment that's on the airport? And are you looking at things possibly like pooling in the future, or is the community opposed to that?
Well, what we actually, in terms of the equipment that we have, I mean, we actually put our maintenance people to work on upgrading the maintenance and doing more preventive maintenance on that equipment. We are, for the most part, for example, the way we operate, which is not the way all airports in the U.S. operates, we maintain the jet bridges and the ground equipment. So we've already got that responsibility. We've got a contractor that does it. We oversee it. So the role of the airline is to have their personnel trained on those aspects of it. But we maintain, for the most part, so that the ground air, the air conditioning that is very critical if you're flying in here on a June or July afternoon and you're on the airplane, because it can get pretty hot pretty quickly. Yeah. The airlines, of course, have their own tugs and things like that. So they'll maintain those, but we still have, in terms of safety requirements that are enforced by FAA, we have to review all those pieces of equipment and oversee some of that maintenance and make sure that it's up to standard. So we've already taken care of that. I think the biggest issue that we've seen, frankly, is that we have a lot of aircraft that are parking overnight. So we'll have on average 120 aircraft parking at the airport. We have 93 gates. Most of those gates have an aircraft parked overnight. And then we've got a couple of ramp areas that we will park aircraft. But that has been an ongoing issue because there haven't been that many aircraft flying, obviously.
Exactly.
But we're starting to see that come back. But I still think that you're going to see, it's going to be a while before you see the fleet fleets the size that you saw them pre-pandemic. I think the airlines, at least the ones that are focused, are basically eliminating those aircraft that are not as efficient and trying to figure out alternatives for them. And then there are still orders that are coming in from both Airbus and Boeing for some of the carriers here. So the newer aircraft are still being put online, probably not as quickly, but they're being utilized.
Yeah, no, exactly. And as far as that utilization and making sure every route counts, and where they had so many routes that they just wanted to operate because I think it's going to be a lot more selective now. Now, if there was a competition now between several US airports to fly to, what would be the benefits or the USPs that Orlando would be able to pitch against, certain other similar? And I know there's nowhere 100% the same as Orlando, but similar. What USPs? What are the big ticket items that Orlando would say, do you know something? This is why you should come here, especially for the international ones.
We're the happiest place in the world. I mean, that's it.
I'm so glad you smiled there now, my friend. That just lit me up. What a beautiful smile. Your family must love it when you crack up like that.
Yeah.
That is lovely. I love that, Phil. Brilliant.
So, yeah, I mean, it goes back to hospitality, but we are also have been focused on making sure that everybody at the airport, regardless of where they work for the aviation authority or elsewhere, focuses on the hospitality impact, or the impact. We're the first impression, we're the last impression. I think the other thing is connectivity. I mean, we will, in a year and a half, have a intercity passenger rail system that will connect at the airport. Not a whole lot of US airports have that. I mean, in Europe and the UK, you're used to that, having some close access or connective access to ground transportation.
So that's Brightline, yeah?
Right. I think the other thing is that we've always been competitive in fares. So you get good value for traveling to Orlando. Yeah. And we recognize that. We have a system, we share excess revenue with airlines here. Yeah. So if they're productive and we generate more revenue and expenses, we will share a portion of that with them to make sure that they can continue to serve this market at an affordable rate.
Yeah, I must say there's a lot of people I know, and even when I was living there, what we used to do is we'd go into Orlando, and we'd do some of the sites, etc. Then we'd go down and explore the rest of Florida, and then come back, because it always seemed to be a lot easier getting in and getting out than it was in some of the other airports. So I think that stands in good stead. Now, the sense of place, or the Orlando experience, I mean, that's something that's almost inbred. It seems to be a kite mark or a stamp mark or a tattoo. Everybody seems to want to make people feel happy. And I suppose when you see so many people coming into your working backyard who are so excited and have had such a great time when they leave, it's not the most difficult of things to always have a smile.
It's not, but you have to recognize that even the people that come here traveling by air is anxiety producing. So one of the things that we try to do is work with all the stakeholders. We work a lot with Transportation Security Administration, with Customs and Border Protection. Their focus is usually a little bit different, but even here, I think the management of both of those agencies, as well as the employees, recognize that we're a little bit unique, and that people that are coming here for a happy experience, and that to the extent that we can accommodate them and not compromise our fundamentals and safety and security, then we ought to accommodate that. But that's I think the whole focus. Our development of our facilities has been about what we call bringing the outside in. And if you traveled here from Atlanta to what's now a North Terminal Complex, you saw there was a lot of light, there were foliage, there were water features. It gives you a sense of you're not in Kansas anymore, or you're not at Gatwick anymore. That makes a great impression. And then you you combine that with some of the icons that people come here to see, the Woody Woodpeckers or the Harry Potter or Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse. They see that when they walk into the airport, and it induces a little bit of relief, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. It starts the magic memories off. I can remember the first time going in there with my kids, and they just loved it, and they thought they'd arrived once we got to the terminal, which is all credit, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Now the South Terminal, huge investment. Okay, do you want to give us a little bit of a background as to what's going on there? Obviously, there's extra parking stands, extra gates. I mean, it's going to be a much needed extension and improvement.
Yeah, it is going to be much needed. It's been somewhat of a challenge because we knew early on in the pandemic that some of our revenue sources for that weren't going to materialize. So we had to make some adjustments. And we actually had 19 piers that we were going to build. We've reduced that to 15. It'll still give us some extra gate capacity for a while. The challenge we've had is trying to predict when the traffic will come back.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that my prediction of 2025 is probably going to be wrong, and it hopefully will be sooner because we're starting to see the evidence of that now, at least on the domestic side. But we were in a situation pre-pandemic where we didn't have enough gates for carriers, so it was really fortuitous that we had started this. We'd actually planned this going back to 1999 and had to stop right after 9/11 because traffic decreased. We had stopped right after the recession in 2008, but we started this time around, and we have begun the construction. We're about 72% finished with it. It will be the same concept, basically the outside in, but it will be the 21st century version of it. Like what we like to say is the Orlando experience on steroids.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We've focused a lot on the experience of the passenger and the design of it. One of the improvements that we have that goes back to the technological aspects that we talked about earlier is our baggage system. In the United States, for the most part, all the baggage systems have been conveyor systems, belt driven. They're held hostage to gravity. So when you get off a plane and have to go to the bag claim, it's usually down a level or two or in the bowels of the airport. Because of the system we have, which is an integrated carrier system, a tote system, every piece of baggage will go into a tub. There's a radio frequency ID chip on the bottom of the tub to allow you to track it. But there's also the system itself moves on tracks as a conveyor, so you can elevate it. So our baggage claim is actually going to be on the top floor of the airport so that you have the sunlight coming in. We have some very, I think, state-of-the-art experiential media that we're putting in here. If you've ever traveled to Tom Bradley International in Los Angeles, the International, you will have seen some of that. We saw that in Tom Bradley, but I think we've done a much better job of incorporating it because it's very high tech. But what people will see in that experiential media is things that you may not have been able to visit when you were here. A lot of the flora and the fauna throughout Central Florida, which is it's very attractive. It's very pleasant. Manatees, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
The other thing they'll see is the space program. I mean, we're 45 minutes away from NASA and Mr. Musk and Mr. Bezos and all their endeavors into space. So I've lived here for 43 years. So I remember under NASA when aircraft or rockets would go up, and now we're back into the same kind of thing. It's just virtually a rocket shot every other week or even more frequently than that. So never get tired of going out in the front yard and watching that.
It's incredible, isn't it? And there is so many so many different elements of different areas, which obviously, I mean, what an incredible thought process Mr. Disney went through to decide all those years back, to locate there. Huh? It's phenomenal.
Yeah, he was a visionary, and he has charted a course that others have used. I think we've got 7 of the largest 10 theme parks in the U.S. in Orlando, and it creates a lot of activity. There are also a lot of other aspects that people can enjoy. Once upon a time, the only thing that you could find to eat when you came to Orlando was a Ponderosa Steakhouse, and now we actually have a foodie scene. We've got folks at the Harp and Kelp that watch the Premier League on every Saturday morning, and then sometimes on Sunday mornings, and they have their pints and they're having their fish and chips. So it's expanded quite a bit. So we are truly multicultural in Central Florida.
Yeah. No, I've got to admit the last time I was there, it changed an awful lot, and it was changed for the better as well. Very easy to get round. It's incredible. Now, South Terminal. So also we were talking about Brightline, the intercity rail system. That's going to connect with Miami and be operational in 2023.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's going to be a hell of a benefit for both Miami and for Orlando.
Yeah, I think it'll be a benefit for the state ultimately, because one of the things that we are seeing is that we are the 3rd most populous state in the United States now. We surpassed New York, and we still are in love with our vehicles. And there are only so many roads that you can build. So
yes.
I think that intercity long haul opportunity for a train, you don't see that. In years past, airlines were trying to do that short haul. It's never been quite efficient for them.
Yep.
Some of them will still do it to feed traffic. So we'll have 10 flights a day from American from Orlando to Miami that's feeding it into their international connections.
Yep.
But the train will offer an opportunity that we can start making some significant dents into our carbon footprint.
Yep.
There are plans which haven't all been approved yet for them to extend that beyond Orlando International to Tampa. Yep. And I expect eventually Jackson will be on the route, but that will give the ability to go throughout the state with Orlando at the hub of all that. So we will truly be trains, planes, and automobiles.
Yeah. Another great film. But yeah, that'll be an exception, won't it? And when you think of the combinations of, twin cities, twin activities, linking up the cruise ships, all the things that you can do, it's going to be amazing.
Right.
And cutting down on the amount of cars on the road for all that, those long journeys up and down that people have been doing for years.
And just to put in a shameless plug, we do have a Major League Soccer team here, football to you.
Yes, you do. You do. Yeah.
And they're actually doing pretty well. They're undefeated. But it's been interesting to watch that. We're hoping. I think I keep hearing the rumors that Arsenal is going to come over for a friendly. Arsenal, but I don't know that that's true.
Well, yeah, I think Arsenal at the moment will go anywhere for a friendly. They haven't been doing too well this season, so to get away, it might do them the world of good. Well,
and then the owner of the Tottenham Hotspurs has a home here in Orlando as well. Yeah. So we've got some cross currents going on with football.
Yeah, you have indeed. I think Mr. Levy, he'll be looking so forward to getting over there because he's also having a troubled time at the moment. So yeah, you're doing well with them boys. Now, as far as Orlando Airport and all the things that you've had to do, what's on the radar? What are the big ticket items now that you're looking forward to doing over the next couple of years, and especially now as people start to get the confidence to come back in?
Well, I think two things. One, finish the South Terminal. Two, continue to work as hard as we can to recover the traffic. We've had some interesting services start up during the pandemic. We now have a direct service to Honolulu from Orlando.
Yeah, yeah.
And we want to continue that. I think we have some opportunities that would benefit more venues in the UK once we can work out the strategies and the tactics and the protocols for making sure all the governments are requirements are met, that people can start flying again. That will present some opportunities for more growth in those areas. So that's really, I think, on the top of the list, to continue with the safety and security, the cleanliness, but finish the South Terminal. Hopefully look forward to an additional expansion going forward on that as traffic grows. But we want to make sure that we truly are a global gateway for Florida and the United States, and we can serve as a gateway from Europe to Latin America as well.
Yeah, yeah.
There are a lot of opportunities there that we think that will help the traveling public, and all of us here are really, we miss not traveling. We haven't been able to travel a whole lot because there's such a great experience, and you meet a lot of people and you learn a lot of things. And that's a great way, I think, for people to meet each other and work well together and understand each other. So
Yeah,
we're all promoting travel.
No, and I think again, Phil, I think, everybody was worried, and quite rightly so. And, God bless all the poor people that have been affected. But the one thing for sure is the bounce back is going to be phenomenal, and the bringing back better is what people are doing, like yourselves. You're focusing on all the good things from previous and past, making sure that they're better today, so that everybody gets the benefits, tomorrow. So I think once that comes, the one thing that people are aware of now is, what to value, what was important, making memories. Because no matter how long we're on this small planet of ours, it's not long enough. So you need to do as much as you can when you can, and see the things that are so worth seeing and having a bit of fun. So I don't think there's many places better equipped than Orlando for that. So I think, you're going to see a huge return back. But the interesting thing is the international flights, why they would go directly into Orlando. I think that's going to change. I think that's where you're going to get a lot of benefit.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to focus. We understand the economics of the airline business, but I think in terms of the proposition that we make, there's value to it because we can work with them and provide the connectivity, because it's about flying from airport to airport. But if you can't move people in and out of the airport in an efficient, agreeable manner, then it becomes a major challenge, and people will not want to fly into the airport again. So, but then there's so many other things. I mean, the theme parks have been great. They will continue to evolve and improve. But I can't say enough about the space program and the natural beauty in Florida that also presents a lot of opportunities for people to enjoy, and will give them unforgettable experiences.
Yeah, no, it truly is a place of memories, a place of magic. So with that, sir, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. And like I said, I've been through Orlando many, many times with families and friends on holiday, but also business when I was based over there in Atlanta. I've always enjoyed it, never had a bad time there. So I wish you well, wish you great success. And I look forward to maybe having a beer with you when I come over next time.
I'd like to play with you.
Yeah, because I would love to play a game of poker or something with you, my friend. I think we'd have a good evening.
Right. We definitely would. I don't know how much I'd lose or win, but it doesn't matter if you've got good beer.
Yeah, no, exactly. But listen, good luck to you and everybody there. And thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Cheers, Phil.